our social in the summer, some of the 85 people who had joined, we were asking them about their views.
My mother, and you never called her mum, would have told me that one doesn't talk about.
No, well, we're not going to. We're talking about the hustings.
Right, we're now talking, we're Labour Party members talking about our recent experience of hustings and what it's like to be in the Labour Party. Far away.
Shall I take it away? Okay.
Yes.
So I went to Stevenage, and I'll be honest, I had already knew who I was supporting. So Corbyn impressed me because unlike the other three candidates, Burnham, Cooper, Kendall, he was sort of not afraid to set his own agenda. I think the other three have been swallowing the sort of Tory perception that opposing cuts to public services has now all of a sudden became a far left thing, and I don't think it is. What else can I say?
Well, let's go on to you. What do you think?
Well, I wasn't actually at the hustings, but I do agree with what Jack said about the cuts thing. You know, I think that for me personally, I don't see opposing Tory cuts as being a kind of Marxist far left thing.
No.
You know, I see it as a Labour thing, and so that's why I support Jeremy Corbyn, because I think, you know, he's the only one that's really clearly sort of standing against the cuts. I did support Andy Burnham initially. He was going to have my first vote, but then I think when he abstained recently, and he's just been a bit kind of, it seems like he's trying to, trying to please too many people. So
He
he should have stuck.
be more positive.
I wish he had. Definitely.
Sorry, who are we talking about?
Burnham.
Burnham.
He voted against the Tories in the amendment, and then when it came to the substantive vote, he changed. And that was a pity. I would have liked him to have. And that's why I felt, and still feel, that the left-wing candidate is the best. He is the most adventurous. He seems to be more confident, and Burnham has sort of gone off into the mists of time.
But I feel that supporting the cuts means that you support the whole of the Tory policy, economic policy, whereas there is an alternative. Instead of trying to get rid of the deficit by cuts, you should be boosting production.
Yes.
By investment.
An investment bank.
Exactly.
You know, which people whistle about but don't seem to do.
a Corbyn policy.
Yes.
I think the problem at the hustings, though, was that Corbyn was able to speak his mind, and all the other three, who perceived him not to be a real candidate, but themselves as candidates, were trying to be all things to all people. So they were quite constrained about what they felt they could say. And I think that's why the hustings, in a way, gave a kind of false impression of what was going on.
Has everybody had sugar?
You're filming.
You're lowering the tone.
Why did somebody say something?
Carry on, Mike.
Well, I was only going to say that I too went with a preconception, although possibly not the same as other people's, but I was very disappointed by Liz Kendall. I thought she, in charisma terms, she was totally lacking. She didn't. Whereas Andy Burnham was more charismatic than I thought that he would be. But I have to say Vet Cooper was the most impressive, and everyone I've spoken to who was actually at the hustings thought that she performed best. I don't know if that's what you two
Were you at the same one as Jack?
Yeah.
I thought she performed well. Obviously, I have my own views about her. I'm not going to
Vet Cooper.
Yeah.
Cooper. For the other lady who hasn't impressed me at all.
But what do you mean by being practical?
You've got to see how you can get into government.
Does anybody think we're going to win next time?
Exactly.
Does anybody think we're going to win?
Isn't it more important to take time getting this all sorted out?
Yeah.
Instead of being so pragmatic, I think it's more important to be principled. And you somebody talked about the Tory policy. It isn't a policy, it's a project.
Yes.
And the project is to dismantle the state and go much, much further than Thatcher ever was going to go in the 80s.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 So let's get our policies
Yeah, let's
right.
get sorted
Get
out.
them known.
Doesn't matter how long it takes, get it right.
And then talk about being, practical.
But,
Then we'll
don't you think that you're not great policies?
No.
What you can't do is you can't win with a poor leader, however good your policies
But
are.
at the
That's what
moment,
worries me.
I don't think either of those are realistic because we're going to lose 100 seats with boundary changes.
Yeah.
We've lost the whole of Scotland, which must be getting on for 60 seats. That's a massive mountain to climb.
But no, I agree. But we need a good charismatic leader, and I think that the good charismatic leaders have made the same view as I think many of us have come to, that it's not winnable in 2020, and they're hanging back. I think that's why Chuka Ramuna came out of the
do you
race.
think that's why?
I may be wrong, but I think he's thinking he'll have a better chance next time. David Miliband, the same. I think that's when they perceive the real rest. But it's a long time in politics, isn't it? Who knows?
If it was me, I'd give 16-year-olds a vote because I think that seeing what's happening in the Scottish referendum,
exactly.
we went up for the Commonwealth Games and the place was absolutely buzzing. And if young people get to discuss it at school and realise they have a voice, that they have views that need to be heard, I think you can engage them in political discourse at that point, and with any luck they'll stay with it. Whereas at the moment, an awful lot of young people aren't even registered to vote, are they?
Yeah. That was the great thing about the Scottish referendum, wasn't it? Just seeing how engaged young people got in politics. Well, everyone got in politics.
Yes, 16-year-olds could vote.
Yeah.
But this business of not allowing household registrations is foolish, and it's to only benefit the Tories, because the Tories know
That's why they've done it.
The old grey vote
Absolutely.
and the interested capitalist vote will vote for them. Whereas we're daft enough to think that if we asked ordinary people to stand, then they won't win.
On bonds.
If you have a referendum, people will vote
Against.
it. So it's got to be a government that says we are going to go for
Well, that
proportional
seems to me to be near
representation.
impossible.
Yes.
At the moment.
Being practical.
But the Scottish system for electing
Yes.
Holyrood members,
MEPs.
yes, there were two parts to it, and I mean you probably understand much better than I do.
It's the party list, isn't it? And
Yes,
then,
so you get your own MP, who is somebody from the top of the successful list, and then you get other people for your party and your region, and that seemed to work very well. And very quickly they got almost 50% of the MSPs were female, which we still haven't got anything like that in England.
And of course it's like the elected mayors, they're done on a sort of somewhat proportional representation, aren't they? And of course the regional governments are as well in Wales and Scotland.
And the MEP.
And the MEP.
And the MEPs as well.
Yeah.
Yes. So we had an interesting talk there. I think we probably got
Here's
enough.
to proportional representation.
Infiltrators. They weren't at our meeting yesterday. Right? Where are they? And I think it's just.
But it doesn't matter, because the Tory idea is to get them all to vote for Jeremy Corbyn so that the Labour Party will then be inelectable.
Yes, but this is this is John Mann in the Labour Party saying he wants Harriet Harman to suspend the leadership election while they vet all of these new members. Now vetting is a very loaded word, and I'm surprised they can't see the irony in actually suggesting we vet our own members because they're not voting properly. They're voting for Jeremy Corbyn. I mean, it's very, very sad, and we need to flush these people out of the woodwork before they do any more damage.
Yeah.
And then I must have gone back after I'd retired in about 99, and the whole place had changed. The staff room was full of young people, and a lot of them voted Labour, they told me. It was amazing. Amazing.
We could get our
So
party
even
back.
in a hotbed of privilege.
But isn't that sort of school supposed to make you think for yourself? And if you think for yourself, you might come to a different conclusion from those around you.
Well, it depends on, you think for yourself, you look at your loaded parents, you think, yes, this is a nice life, how do they achieve that? You don't necessarily think through voting Labour.
So are you a new member as well? Or?
Yeah, but I was a member years ago But yeah, just rejoined after the election.
Because
but I'm not. Yeah,
you decided that.
I'm not a Tory in disguise.
Fire.
So why did I join the Labour Party at this juncture? Well, it was the result of the election, of course. I mean, I was horrified by the thought that, we've got 5 years now of the Conservatives in power, and George Osborne scares me, and I just felt as though it was, I needed to do something. My politics, I left the Labour Party originally in the early 80s when I'd spent a lot of time supporting the miners during the miners' strike, and was horrified when Neil Kinnock made that speech condemning the miners when the police had been so brutal towards them. And that I sort of tore up my card in disgust at that point and left. And but I've always voted Labour in every election since then. But I just think that I have to do something now. I feel that the prospect of this government is that they will destroy the welfare state, and I'm a product of the welfare state. If it hadn't been for the welfare state, I wouldn't have had any of the opportunities that I've had. I was the first member of my family ever to go to university, for example. I would have died in infancy if it wasn't for the National Health Service. I mean, I come from a very poor background, and I owe my life to the Labour Party, really, to what happened in 1945, and I think that what's happening at the moment is that this government is going to finish off the job that Thatcher started. They're going to destroy the 1945 settlement, and I think they're going to take Britain back to what it was prior to the Second World War, and I think that this will be a catastrophe for whole number of reasons, and I think it's an unnecessary one, and I think it's an ideological one, and I think the people that are in charge of the country are, in my view, quite irresponsible and cruel, and I just feel very, 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 very desperate.
Fine.
Well, I think, in my opinion, the Scottish situation is interesting and I think a lesson. My view was that Labour lost in Scotland because it had been too right-wing for too long, and the Scottish Nationalist Party managed to steal the narrative that Labour should have had, and I think that they won because they were clearly anti-austerity. And I think that part of the Labour's problem in England also was that it didn't talk the language that its traditional support base wanted to hear, and I think that they didn't turn out for Labour. So I think at the moment the Scottish Nationalist Party have stolen Labour's rhetoric in Scotland, and I think that's why they won. Now I think that Labour needs to adopt a stronger anti-austerity message. I think it needs to move left. I think it needs to move leftwards, and I think Scotland has shown it, demonstrated that it needs. That's what it needs to do.
Okay.
Now, as far as my views on Scotland are, that my sentiments would be that if the Scottish people want independence, then they're perfectly entitled to have it. And I think the implication for England would be that we need to have a new constitution. And if I were to be asked what I thought was the best thing that Labour could do now, in terms of the constitution, I think that Labour should think very seriously about adopting a position in favour of proportional representation. I don't think, given the present circumstances and the first past the post system, that Labour can win another majority. And it needs to win again in Scotland to do it, and in order to win in Scotland it has to go left wing, and that may remove the possibility of winning in England, in which case it may make it very difficult, I think, for Labour to get a majority under the first past the post system. But under a proportional representation system, Labour could lead left of centre coalitions which would freeze out Conservatives. And I think that would be the safest thing for the country. I think the problem is that the first past the post system has produced the possibility for this particular ideologically driven wing of the Conservative Party to hijack the country and lead it and do irreparable damage. And I think that is a real major problem. And I think the first past the post system is the culprit really in the end.
Elect Jeremy Corbyn, but it's interesting to see how people's attitude to Scotland and also to being a minority party, we could still influence things if there were proportional representation.